So as I said, I'm Laura Stewart, and I'd like to introduce Dina Moskowitz, CEO and founder of SaaSMAX Corp. And today we're going to be talking about SaaSMAX. We're going to introduce you to Carol and April of CompTIA. Then we're going to talk about the big picture, what's really happening based on the data that CompTIA has put together. We'll talk about the state of the channel. And then you're going to get to hear some surprises that were found during all of the surveys and all of the data that was gathered. We'll look ahead, we'll wrap up, and do the Q&A. So right now I'd like to present to you Dina Moskowitz, founder and CEO of SaaSMAX.
Okay, great. Thanks, Laura. Hi, everyone, and thanks for being here today. I'm really excited about having Carolyn be on the line and being able to talk about this industry data, some of which hasn't even been revealed yet outside of CompTIA. So thanks, and you're in for a good treat. And so just as a brief overview, because some of you may be new to SaaSMAX, SaaSMAX is a company that's creating the SaaS sales value chain. Basically, we connect and match up B2B SaaS companies with resellers, and this gives both new recurring revenue opportunities. And we do that by providing customized matchmaking between vendors and resellers. And we also help vendors to do channel marketing, and we provide some micro-consulting if you either need to refresh your program or have never been in the program or had a reseller program. And we've launched a pay-per-performance commerce platform, which means that when you're listed on SaaSMAX, the resellers can now put that into their own reseller SaaS stores that we power up, and that enables them to have quote-to-cash billing and do business with you very efficiently, saving you a lot of time and saving them and giving them a one-stop shop. Let's go to the next slide. So SaaS companies like SaaSMAX because we do the trusted proactive matchmaking. We know our community, we know the resellers, we know the channel, and we're able to really identify who the right partners are for the vendors, and we accelerate their time and speed up their ability to identify the right partners and recruit and acquire them. We also are helping you build brand equity and do channel marketing campaigns. And we also have a WordPress reseller portal in a box if you need that to get your program started. Has a lot of great templates and all the things you need to get up and running quickly versus and affordably. And then we go to a lot of conferences and have our own conferences, and that gives you the opportunity to meet resellers in person as well, reducing your cost of reseller acquisition as well. And then also the pay-per-performance transaction and commission management business model makes it so that we're super aligned with you. And just so you understand why resellers like SaaSMAX, it's because we do also provide them with the trusted proactive matchmaking, reducing their time for R&D and trying to find the right channel-friendly SaaS vendors to help their clients. And then we also, as a result, are speeding their time to revenue. And we're enforcing best practices with the SaaS vendors so that they really know that they can start working with these SaaS companies in a quality relationship. And finally, because as a one-stop shop, they have their own white label reseller web store with quote-to-cash billing and management and referral commission tracking, which makes it very easy for them to bring SaaS companies, SaaS products into their line card and be able to start selling those to their client base. The other thing we wanted to share is that if you are a SaaS company and channel chief, we have a new service that's called Partner Optimizer. And basically, we profile and crawl tens of thousands of reseller partners' websites and are able to take all the unstructured data on their websites and organize that into a very structured database that helps us understand the business of all these resellers out there. And so what that does is really helps you understand and refresh your partner database if you have a few thousand partners or more, and also helps you identify net new partners. And more importantly, you can create very targeted campaigns for your partners so that if you are looking at really how to spend your sales time in a quality way, you can narrow it down more quickly and figure out the quality partners versus going after quantity. So the types of data that you can find through us include things like their company description, how they describe themselves, what types of solutions and specializations they offer, and product types. If they mention your competitors or mention your adjacent vendors, those are great things that we can sort out and you can see on the screen. What vertical markets they serve and customer size and type. even what partner programs and tiers they say that they are part of, and what certifications they have. So it's a very deep understanding and a comprehensive view of what a partner looks like, so that you really can accelerate your marketing campaigns and your relationship with the right partners. And so with that, I'm super excited to bring Carolyn in, because they've been doing research throughout the year at CompTIA all about what makes what's going on with adopting SaaS and cloud solutions in the channel, and how things are shifting and changing as a result. And so Carolyn's got some amazing slides that, you know, as channel chiefs and as companies that are building your channels, and even as solution providers who are on the call today, who are looking at what their opportunity is to bring on and be successful selling SaaS, this information will really help you understand the macro perspective on it. So Carolyn's a senior director and industry analyst at CompTIA, and she's been basically in the IT channel and IT media for a good portion of her career, and really has her finger on the pulse. And so without further ado, I'm going to welcome Carolyn and let you get started with all the data.
All righty. Thanks, Dina. Everybody can hear me, I hope. I'm really happy to be here today. For those of you who aren't familiar with CompTIA, I'll just do a little quick overview. We are the global IT association, the largest association that represents the technology industry that there is today. We're membership driven, but we do a ton of work in other areas, including IT skills and workforce. We have a big public policy presence in Washington, D.C., which is going to be an interesting year for them. And we do certifications, obviously, and that is a big part of the CompTIA business. Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with A+ and various other certifications that CompTIA has been shepherding along for many, many years now. I work, as Dina mentioned, in the market research department, and we do a lot of primary research that spans all of those areas that I just mentioned. We focus very much on technology itself, so we have analysts who do a lot of work very specifically on, you name it, big data, mobility, the cloud, etc. We do tons of channel work, because the bulk of our membership are either channel firms themselves or vendors who work with many indirect partners, or they are distributors. That's a big part of what we do. And then we do a lot of workforce studies. One of the pillars of what CompTIA does is to try to encourage as many young people as possible to start pursuing careers in technology, and specifically getting into some of the channel businesses that I'll talk about a little bit later, as how we're seeing the demographics shift pretty rapidly in our channel, and it's important for us to be there as an independent association to help folks see that it is a valid and a lucrative, potentially, career path for them. So yeah. I kind of hold on to the channel part of the research. So annually I do a State of the Channel study. Most of the data that I'm going to present today is from that, but not all of it. Some of this big picture data I'm going to show you now is from a study we do in the beginning of the year that is called the IT Outlook, and it really takes a big picture view of really what is going on in the industry from a macro standpoint. So how big the industry is, what the demographics look like, what end customers look like. Because one of the unique things I think that positions us well against some of the other research properties out there is that we do not only do channel research, but we make sure that many of our surveys are done with the end user community, because at the end of the day, it's great to hear what the channel's doing if you're in the channel, as our members are, but it's even greater sometimes to hear about what the end customers are thinking about and wanting, because those are the people you're going to be selling to. So that's one other thing I wanted to note. We can move ahead, Dina, please.
Definitely. And while we are moving ahead, I just want to mention that if you're a member of SaaSMAX, we also have a special membership discount for you with CompTIA as a result of our partnership. So if you're interested in knowing that, let us know. I think it's for the solution providers. I think it's a $100 discount, and for vendors, I think there's a discount as well. So let us know if you're interested. But yes, CompTIA has been an extremely valuable organization, and even sort of a think tank and networking community for SaaSMAX. And we try to get many of our partners involved, as well as our vendors involved when they can.
Yes, terrific. Thanks, Dina. So this is a little snapshot of what the U.S. customer base looks like today, and it is the classic pyramid, as you can see. And obviously the majority of people in the United States work for an SMB company, so they'd either be in the small business segment or the micro business segment. That's the vast majority of where people are working and where the number of establishments are as well. And as we know, many channel companies are themselves SMB businesses, and they tend to map directly to another SMB in terms of their end customers who they appeal to. That's not to say that you're not selling into a medium-sized business segment. That's actually a great sweet spot if you can connect in there. And also the enterprise, and we see some penetration from channel companies getting into that large business segment. But as you can see, it's much smaller portion of the total demographic than the smaller, the micro business segment when you're looking at end user customers. And those small businesses tend to not have an IT department, or they may have one guy or one woman who's working in their IT department. They often these days, because of cloud, will do some click-to-provision or self-procurement of those applications that are in the cloud. But that doesn't mean that there's no room for a partner to move in, because what we're finding in our data is many of these small companies who do procure on their own, via the web, download a collaboration tool or whatever it is that they're working with, find themselves as they try to grow their business or scale, or to try to tie that application into other applications they already have on site or in the cloud, or they think about, oh, I don't know how to secure this application. That is where the channel can really play a role in providing value-added services around anything that the small business segment may be doing from a buying standpoint on their own. We can move on, please. Dina? Hello? Hello, hello, hello?
Yeah, it's just going slow.
Oh, okay. It went completely silent, and whenever that happens, I get nervous.
Yeah, I was on mute. My apologies.
No worries. Okay, so that was what we just looked at was what the customer segments in the U.S. look like from an end user perspective. So this is a review of what the United States IT channel looks like demographically right now, and much like the customer view, most channel firms are small, as I mentioned. So you can see, the vast majority are either in that small category of 10 to 99 employees, or even larger, or in the 1 to 9 employees. There are many small shops out there who are doing a tremendous amount of business. I mean, the internet has made everybody be a big business in some sense, and the cloud is even doing more to promote that. So small companies, you may have 2 or 3 employees, you can be a large presence in the market simply because of being, the ability to be online. The way it breaks down the types of establishments, and this is based off federal data, is that most identify when they have their little NAICS code, which is how the federal government identifies various types of business roles and capacities, is most of these folks are identifying in the channel today as traditional solution providers, integrators, consultants, system builders, and managed services providers. A much lesser degree, we're talking about traditional VARs, those who are involved in backup and disaster recovery. Also MSPs put themselves in this space. There's a lot of granularity, and when you look at the NAICS system, I've looked at it more times than I care to, and it's very complicated in terms of job role and in terms of business role. So you could be an MSP, but you might be an MSP that fits into this bucket versus that bucket, and so they're very, very specific about it. But this is really how it breaks down. There's not a ton of very large channel firms out there, and those that are large are quite large and often own a particular piece of the market. We saw a lot of consolidation and M&A activity last year, and I think we're going to continue to see that as we move forward over the next few years. It has something to do with the aging of the channel. It also has to do with many vendors who are getting interested in some of the channel firms that are out there and seeing them as a viable arm to add to their actual business, as opposed to just using them as an indirect channel player for them. So you may see more large channel firms and more medium-sized channel firms going forward as we see more of this consolidation.
Yeah, and Carolyn, I wanted to bring up that, from the SaaSMAX standpoint, because we have more products that are in line of business as well, we're seeing the channel broadening to include CRM consultants and SEO and Google AdWords consultants, custom programming firms and digital affiliates, and even accounting advisors and HR consultants are looking at how to get involved and take advantage of the commissions that they generate from, or they could potentially generate from being the trusted advisors to their clients on technology.
Oh, yeah.
So
no, there's a lot to discuss there. I mean, we have that in our data as well. In fact, we did a separate study. We usually do a vertical industry study once a year, and this year we did one on the professional services industry, which we segmented out as accounting firms, marketing firms, and law firms. And across the board, all of those folks, all of those firms are involved in some degree of being a quote-unquote technology referral person, or somehow, how you would define them as a channel company. And it's very interesting. And you'll see in a slide that's going to come up fairly soon, it's one of the concerns for the traditional channel, but I also think all of this competition is keeping everybody on their feet, and it's very interesting to watch.
Agreed, it really is, and we're seeing it day to day, and we're seeing it not just U.S. based, but beyond into North America and Europe and Asia as well. So, I think it's going to become part of actually how we define and quantify the size of the channel, hopefully within the next few years.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. So let's go to the next slide.
Okay, so this is how the U.S.-based IT industry breaks down. So it's $1 trillion, roughly, $1 trillion industry, and it breaks down across these 4 buckets. We've got hardware, IT services, software, and telecom services right now. And I don't have the numbers on here, but basically it's a fairly even breakdown. Hardware right now is about 25% of that $1 trillion. IT services is about a quarter as well. Software right now is at 20%, but it's the fastest growing category. And then telecom is at 30%. And telecom makes sense to have the biggest spend because a lot of that is heavy-duty hardware equipment we're talking about. Just to give you a couple examples of what is dominating in each of these categories, smartphones and PCs make up more than half of all hardware that's being sold today in the U.S. For the IT services bucket, it's implementation and support services that comprise 3/4 of all IT services that are being offered today. In software right now, it's applications and system infrastructure, and you would put that's both on-premise and cloud into that bucket, and that's taking up about 2/3 of all software piece of the pie in the U.S. today. And then telecom, the majority of that total is wireless data and wireless voice. We can slide on. We can move on. So since we're talking to a SaaS audience here, I just wanted to give you a few tidbits, and we won't spend a lot of time on these because reading them might bore you to death, but it's robust growth expected in the SaaS category and in cloud category in general. IDC, all the big major market research firms, IDC, Forrester, Gartner, are all predicting pretty widespread growth. SaaS is one of the fastest growing categories for all 3 of these, and it's what we're seeing in all the other. We at CompTIA, we play nice with all the other research groups, so we're not exclusive to our own research. We're happy to bring in research from all over. We think that is what benefits our members and what benefits the broader audience the most. One other thing I didn't put up there, which I think is an interesting tidbit, it's another IDC tidbit, is their prediction is by 2020, 67%, so 2/3 of all enterprise IT, infrastructure and software, is going to be cloud-based in some way. And just think about how dramatic that is from even 5 years ago, 10 years ago especially, you wouldn't have seen that at all. So it's a pretty astonishing time that we have gone through, and I put it at the last 5 years, and it's really been a remarkable time to be in this industry, and I think these stats really underscore that. So we can move on now to talk about the channel itself and what's going on there. So we will, most of this data here comes directly from my annual State of the Channel study. This is the 6th study we've done. And we try to do similar questions for benchmarking on each study, and then we add new sections that do not repeat year after year. So we get a good sense of benchmark year over year, and then we get some new information. As far as how people are feeling, now this study goes out to channel firms, so they're assessing themselves and they're talking about the industry themselves. We asked them how they felt about the channel generally. And you've got a solid 2/3, almost 63%, that are optimistic about the channel, and I think that's a good thing. There are others who are pessimistic, and we've done a lot of segmentation around those who are pessimistic, and there's some interesting data there, and I'm happy to share that offline with anyone who's interested into why people are not as optimistic as this 63%. But we're pretty happy that most companies are still feeling good. Coming out of the recession in 2008, there was a lot of pessimism, and companies that had just been treading water to get through. There were companies who went out of business then, and then cloud hit really, really aggressively. And I think 5 years ago I sat in rooms at CompTIA when I first started, or 6 years ago now, and we had meetings like, what is this cloud thing? And oh my God, what does it mean to the channel? And literally there were men and some women in the room who owned channel companies who were pale. They truly were pale, worried beyond belief about what cloud was going to mean for them, and did it just disintermediate them. And I think it's a good sign today, at least, that we're seeing a lot more uptick in happy among some of our channel companies. So let's talk about some of the reasons why that 63% said they have optimism for the future, and then why the others said that they have some pessimism for the future, because these are interesting. So there were many more reasons, but I just confined it to the top 3 for both categories. The number one reason was cloud-driven opportunities. So people are jazzed about cloud, although I'll tell you there's been some changes in that attitude, but not for reasons that that they're turning away from cloud. Many of these folks see that they're finally finding their place in terms of, we don't just sell cloud solutions necessarily or resell cloud solutions. We can be a cloud broker. We can do cloud development. We can help simply as a consultant our customers vet and figure out which cloud solutions they want to use, and then as an MSP maybe manage all those solutions. So I think the plethora of opportunities are out there has a majority of the channel really excited about how that can drive business for them. One of the other things that's got them excited is the scope of technology is broadening so much and becoming so complex and sophisticated that the need for an advisor is almost more important than ever. It's not the same as just going in and selling hardware to somebody and helping them install it and then being there if it breaks. Now these solutions, from data analytics to some of the SaaS solutions out there to working in a vertical industry, require security and compliance. They require so much skill that the channel is optimistic that they're going to be needed. Customers may procure on their own, but then may be sitting there thinking, I don't know how to use this, I don't know, make sure it's secure enough. So that's an opportunity area. Many customers today want to work, they'd like to focus on their core business and strategic initiatives. So this is one of the things we're seeing with bigger end customers, so mid-sized customers. They have IT departments. Their goal is to move those IT departments off the network day-to-day running of technology within an organization and get them moving over to strategic projects, whether it's custom development, developing a cloud strategy, developing a compliance strategy. Get them off the day-to-day, and that's where the channel here can move in to be able to be the necessity that takes. So this is mainly an MSP function, to become the necessity that helps to run those core parts of the day-to-day technology business for a customer.
And Carolyn, I just want to emphasize in here that I think there's additional optimism that can be gleaned from the fact that so many SaaS companies are now just starting to enter into the channel with some really great offers of recurring commission that is more exciting than what has been happening in the hardware channel in recent years of squeezing those margins. And so there's more products. These vendors are excited to be working with the channel, and therefore more new opportunities. So I think that's another point to
yeah, no, I agree with you. One of the data points that we got out of this study, which I don't happen to have in this particular presentation, though, is the partner programs that appealed, the compensation methods that appealed to partners in the past that vendors would give to them, table stakes like volume discounts on hardware, or back-end rebates, or sales spiffs that are thrown out at the end of the quarter, and margin points. Those are far less important or relevant to today's channel companies, and they said so in our survey. They said so because they're believing more in their brand and their own marketing, and I'll get to that toward the end of the presentation, as a the revenue driver. And so it's going to be interesting, as you said, Dina, as newer SaaS vendors and newer companies come into the fold who are starting greenfield, they do not have partner programs that they need to revamp to, to meet the new day. They're starting from scratch. They're going to be able to put together programs that are going to appeal to the new needs and the new demands of their partners today. And I think that is going to change the dynamic dramatically going forward.
I agree.
So I'll go through some of the reasons to be pessimistic. We mentioned this earlier, Dina, you brought it up, new sources of competition, which might include some of you in the audience. But all of those industries that are now, I like to say, it's almost like we don't have a technology industry. Every business is a technology business today, whether you're in retail or healthcare or whatever it is, accounting, as we said, or legal. So we've been noting this trend for some time now, and it started with telecom, but the telecom channel used to be very separate from the IT channel, and not so much anymore. They're either converging in some spots or they're competing very heavily in other spots, but they're definitely in the same world right now, and that's where it all started. And now we're seeing an influx of so many different types of competitors out there, which it really depends on your vantage point. If you're a channel company that says, you know what, I don't have that skill set, why don't I partner with that competitor, potential competitor, and I have something a skill set that they don't have, and then we can go to market together and we'll be able to win business, then that's a rosier outlook than just considering some of these new players competitors. But I think this is so new that we're really sorting out the landscape right now, and we'll see whether this broadening of the competitive playing field is going to be a thumbs up or a thumbs down. General business challenges, that's always, well, we're going to move on. So if you look at, we asked, what do you need, what do you think we need to see happen to ensure that rather than a pessimistic outlook, we can have a positive outlook for the channel's future? And these are the number 3 things. This comes to the fore every time we do this study, and that's the availability of skilled workers. I don't have to tell you how difficult it is to find the right help right now, and people that are advanced in terms of the new services that are being offered. They understand the new business models that we're already operating under, and they're able to sell and market correctly. And I think that's a challenge. It's especially a challenge for aging channel companies, and we're going to face that for the foreseeable future. Part of solving that challenge is to be able to provide more training, technical and business disciplines, especially important in business, because as we're selling services now, we're a service provider world, and so the salespeople that you put in front of a potential customer really have to know how to talk about business outcomes, pain points from a business perspective, and speak to a non-line of business IT person, because more often than not these days they're the ones who have budget who are doing the buying. So that's super important, and we try to provide that from CompTIA, a lot of that training. Vendors need to step up and provide that, as well as distributors. So we like to look in on how the channel vendor relationships are stacking up every year, and most of the time people are pretty satisfied with the vendors they work with. They tend not to say, we can't stand these vendors anymore, we don't want to work with them, we're switching. But I have to tell you, this year was a surprise for us. If you look at the number of vendors who in 2015 were either partly satisfied or partly not satisfied with the vendors they worked with, the number of partners that is, it was only 7%. It more than doubled in just a year's time, and that from a statistical standpoint is pretty dramatic. And what we are seeing is that partners are now seeing all of the new vendors, these SaaS vendors and other people in the marketplace, and they're beginning to take a look, and then they're thinking, like I said before, these partner programs don't map to what we do today, and maybe we should take a look around and see, what else is on the market, what else is out there that might appeal to the type of business model that we're trying to transition to, or we already have transitioned to. So that's something to keep in mind if you are a vendor or a channel chief or you're developing programs, is that partners are constantly reevaluating, and even more so today than ever in past years that I've seen. So let's talk a little bit about this, because we had a set of cloud-related questions on our State of the Channel this year that were repeats from a 2014 cloud study that I did of the channel. And there were some surprises. But I'll talk about those. I want to just tee them up a little bit with this next slide, if you will, please. The cloud is fueling channel growth. Unmistakably, it is. It's growing faster from a revenue standpoint than legacy lines of business. It is bringing higher profit margins compared to legacy lines of business. Now, the caveat there is legacy lines of business still tend to be the biggest bulk of the pie for both revenue and profit for many of the established channel companies. But they're doubling and doubling and doubling every year of what they're taking in cloud. So that's a good thing, and I think you're going to see the table flip over the next 5 years pretty dramatically. Their expectations obviously map to what I've just said here. They expect both their infrastructure cloud business and their SaaS business to grow pretty dramatically, and to both grow dramatically and to overperform whatever expectations or forecasting that they have done. So this is all good news, and so we're hearing positive, positive. But if you move to the next slide, it gets a little bit confusing. So we asked how's cloud impacted the channel generally on this year's study, and we asked that same question in 2014. Well, this year, it's interesting. So almost 4 in 10 said that the opportunity in cloud, as we talked about earlier, is their #1 reason to be optimistic. Yet another 30% said it's the leading reason for them to be pessimistic about the channel's future. It's disintermediating them, or more customers are going direct or buying on their own, and they're feeling left out. So there's definitely still some uncertainty in the channel about how cloud is going to fare for them, and I think that's on an individual basis. It depends on how aggressively they're embracing cloud and whether they're making the right choices with their business model and cloud and what the right fit is, and that's what we'll show you here in the next slide. So this was probably the biggest takeaway from this year's study. In 2014, we asked specifically, how has cloud impacted the channel to you in general? And you had, almost 2/3 in 2014 thought it was having extremely positive impacts. To this past year, that dropped significantly down to 37%. So we at CompTIA are scratching our heads like, oh, what does this mean? What does this mean? And I've talked anecdotally to a lot of folks, and it doesn't mean that the channel's rejecting cloud. In fact, it's not at all. As you saw from that data above, they're growing and their profits are growing. But I think what's happened here is we're seeing a period of refinement. I try to liken it to sort of the way the Gartner hype cycle works. So, you start low, you go on this giant hype cycle, and then, you kind of have this moment, and it's not disillusionment, it's a moment where you have a reality check. And I think that in 2014, after a lot of apprehension about cloud in 2010, 2011, 2012, we saw that on our studies, people started to get real aggressive and excited, like, oh yeah, there are places for us to play, let's do it all. And they tried to do it all with cloud. I think what's happened in 2015 and 2016 has been a period of reflection, and folks are saying, well, all right, maybe I don't need to be everything in the cloud. Maybe I really fit doing this particular vertical industry and understanding those applications that are in the cloud there, and I can be an expert there, or be a consultant, or be a broker. There's an element of biting off a little bit more than you can chew, I think, that's gone on in the channel because we've hyped cloud like crazy. So of course they feel like if we're not there, then we're on the out looking in. And so that's how we chalk it up. It's definitely not a rejection of cloud. And just as in this box as it says, those who had a really positive outlook on the channel in general also had a super positive outlook on how cloud has impacted the channel. So it aligns. If you think the channel is going to be doing well, you are happy about the way cloud has impacted us as well.
Right, and just as an emphasis, the negative is only 1%, and so right there that tells you, just as much that it's not that there's a negative perception, it's just that, it seems like it's mostly all positive, and some people who I think are probably on the tail end, I don't know if you would agree with this, but in terms of the demographics of the channel, the ones who are starting to age out or retire or whatnot are probably less engaged with the whole cloud movement and emergence than the ones who are newer and in sort of the middle of their careers.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. I always use the analogy to my own dad, who ran a small business, very successful. But once he got into his late 50s, if he, no matter what, was being told every day, you have to transform, reading every article about it, and he'd be saying, you know what, I'm doing just fine right now. My family's fed. We're all happy, and I'm retiring in 5 years. I'm not going to transform. And you're absolutely right, Tina. We see that and because of the demographics of the channel, that may explain very much why we see this decline in those who are super, super happy about cloud's impact.
Yeah. Okay, great.
So just quickly, we do a complementary end user study of cloud, and we saw a similar bit of tempered thought on cloud, or a little retrenchment here. And we have a sequence that companies go through that we've defined, where they're in the experimental phase, then a non-critical use where they might put one application in the cloud that is not connected to anything else. Then there's full production, and then transformed IT is the stage that when a company is fully digitized. But what we saw, the decline here was in those who said they're in full production between 2014 and 2016. And I think, my colleague who covers the end user community, we've talked about this, and he thinks this maps exactly to what's happening in the channel. Is, okay, we've had a few years experience here, here's where we need to pump the brakes a little, and here's where we need to rethink maybe this provider that we've been working with and move to a different. And we definitely saw a big wave of customers who had been in full production with their cloud applications and other infrastructure for a few years, who then decided to switch providers. So there's been a secondary migration that's gone on as they've had more experience, and that may account for the fact that they've had to sort of start over a little bit with being in the full production mode. Okay, lastly on cloud, another thing that's just a slight change, but we asked again what cloud's impact had been on individual channel firms' customer relationships. And that declined slightly, like 11% between 2015 and 2016. So that's another indicator that there's maybe a little bit of, and I think it mostly goes to, as Dina mentioned, some of the older, less inclined to make some serious business transformation, but may have tried or dipped their foot in, or had customers who were moving on to some cloud solutions and they were not going to offer them, and so they lost those customers. I think that that accounts for it, and it's not a huge drop statistically, but it certainly is something to take note of. So let's look ahead. I'm trying to keep on time here as best as I can, so I'll give you some few stats on some of the things we need to look ahead for the future. We asked where you're expecting to get, drive the most growth within your organization. Over the last 2 years, most channel firms said they were getting the majority from, or almost the majority from, their existing customer base, which makes a lot of sense. It's good to mine customer base. You never want to see the number of the revenue from net new versus existing customers be completely out of whack. It's good to be serving both populations. But this year we saw that flip. So it's sort of interesting. So most companies in the channel over the next 2 years are expecting to get most of their growth from net new customers. And I think that's interesting because I think what they're finding is they move to a service provider model. Volume of customers, if you've got them on contracts, recurring annuity contracts, the volume of customers is so much more important than it is when you're selling transactionally. From a product-based standpoint, where you can have a big, a big upgrade that you do for some one customer, and that nets you a big check. But as opposed to the recurring revenue model, in which it's really important to on-ramp as many customers at a high volume as you can. And because these companies have now really started to transition away from transactional to recurring revenue, they're understanding that where they need to do their business development, where they need to put their marketing dollars, is to growing the net new base of their customer segment. We just finished an SMB study of the end user market, small and medium businesses. So I'll just hit you with a few demographics here because this is the primary market for most channel firms today. And you'll see the majority of the SMB space, as I alluded to earlier in the presentation, are very small companies. They typically don't have an IT department, and they don't have big budgets. That makes up 78% of this SMB space. But a lot of these folks, they use technology, they want to use technology. The cloud is enabling them to access solutions and services that would be completely out of their reach from a financial standpoint years ago. So that is a community that many smaller channel firms should really focus on because these people need consulting more than anything. The sweet spot would be those medium-sized end user companies. They typically will have enough scale, and they'll have some budget, and they'll even have internal IT departments that the idea of spending on digitizing their organization at looking into cloud solutions and more forward-looking technologies is definitely on the forefront there. And they're ripe for specifically a managed services provider, a SaaS provider. So that definitely is the sweet spot. And then for those who want to get really competitive, if you've got the goods to sell into the larger targets, obviously they have the scale and the budget and sophistication, as long as you're able to provide them with the kind of advanced services. This particular demographic is going to need heavy-duty security and compliance considerations to be thought about. But this is what we're seeing, and this study literally was just finished. So this is the kind of up-to-date look at the demographics in the SMB space, which tends to be the area where the channel sells to.
And it's interesting from the SaaS industry's perspective, and SaaSMAX is what we're seeing out there, is that a lot of SaaS companies who we're speaking with these days, and ones that are joining our marketplace, such as are in the cybersecurity space, and we're seeing that there are enterprise ones that are now looking to go downstream and hit the sweet spot. And then we're seeing newer emerging ones that are, maybe it started with small business and are trying to move up into the sweet spot and to enterprise. So we're seeing from the SaaS vendor opportunity that because the applications can be more easily go upstream and downstream, that there's a lot of shifting and a lot of retargeting of marketing strategies for 2017.
Yeah, that's absolutely, that maps to what we're seeing in the marketplace. You can be a lot more nimble and appeal to different audiences because of the nature of SaaS applications, right, and the cloud itself.
Right. Okay, let's move this to the next slide.
So this is also from the SMB study, and these are some of the end user spending priorities. I won't spend a ton of time on this, but it's good to know as you're building out your own sales and marketing messaging and training your salespeople and your reps on how to talk to potential customers, that these are the key areas that this is their business priorities over the next 12 months. They want to renew and maintain their own key customer accounts. So they want to find new customers just as you do. They want to implement new systems. They want innovation. They want to launch new products and services. The interesting takeaway from all of this is 2/3 of SMBs have indicated to us in our studies that all of these priorities map to technology. They consider technology and IT to be a primary driver to get them to each of these places. And so think about going in and talking to a potential customer. You're there to sell technology or a technology service, but you've got to speak to them in this language. This is how we can help you hire skilled workers. This is how we can help you launch some new products and services. And then you've got the technology or service that's going to help fuel that. So understanding the mindset of what the customer priorities are is going to go a long way to helping anybody try to sell to these customers. And again, that speaks to what I was saying earlier, is it's super important to transform into a business consultant. Yes, you're still selling technology solutions or applications, be it in the cloud or on-premise, whatever it happens to be, but you really need to think of yourself more in line with a business consultant and talk this language as opposed to speeds and feeds.
I agree. And, both from the SaaS vendor and the solution provider side of things, it is so important to talk to your customer based upon what your products and the products you're selling are doing to solve their problems, and especially these top key priorities. So whether it's vertically that you have something special to offer, or some form of differentiation that can allow them to see what makes you different and what allows you to add more value to them based upon these top priorities, please take the time to rework your collateral and your messaging and your sales pitches so that you can accommodate these types of, address these problems that they have.
So also in the year ahead, I alluded to this earlier, is that we're seeing more and more channel firms out there who are taking a look at new vendors. We ask this question every year. The data moved significantly this year. Typically unchanged line card tends to be more than 57% of this pie chart. This year we're seeing a lot more companies who are exploring new vendors and those who are actually shifting, that 8%, who have made the move to new vendors. So if you're a vendor out there, be aware. You don't always know when you lose a partner. They ghost you. They're just not really selling your stuff anymore. They didn't send you a letter or an email or call you to tell you they weren't going to be doing it anymore. So it's something to be aware of from a vendor perspective and just from a market perspective in general, as some of the newer companies in the SaaS world in particular are building their partner programs, that there are a lot of legacy channel partners that have got their eyes and ears open right now to look at new vendor opportunities.
Definitely, and the SaaS vendors have typically are able to offer very easy free trials so that so that customers can give it a shot, and where there's no migration really needed for people to get started and see how they like the new the new product. So SaaS companies actually have an advantage on this side of things.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple examples of what some of the SaaS vendors are saying. One component of our State of the Channel study is we do a set of qualitative interviews. So I've got a big quantitative study, which is all the data you've been seeing. And then we do a set of one-on-one deep dive interviews with, that this year we did them specifically with SaaS vendors that we found in the marketplace and SaaS partners, so those who are selling SaaS solutions. And I just took a sampling out of these verbatims from the qualitative study to show you this was definitely the theme in the interviews that we got, is that SaaS vendors want their partners to move away from being generalist and really start to think about specializing. And they want to be able to have my go-to partner who specializes in electronic medical records, and we have an application for that. My go-to partner who, name your specialty area. But verticals are going to be super important as we move ahead into 2017. And not just verticals, big umbrella like healthcare, but very granular sub-verticals. If you can become a specialist as a partner in some of those areas, you'll become invaluable to your vendors. And because there's so many SaaS applications out there right now that are very niche and very specialized, they are just dying to find the partner who understands the end customer who would want to buy that specialized solution. So I think this is one of the big trends in the years ahead, and I think for many partners who stay in the horizontal lane as a generalist, it's going to become more and more difficult for them to succeed.
Right, and I totally agree with that, but I also think that there are many SaaS companies that come out with a very horizontal product, and that the more they can verticalize and specialize, those are the ones we're seeing do better with partners, because the partners can trust that those products are going to support their clients with more confidence.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, if you are able to then take the horizontal product, whatever it may be, and customize it for the customer because you have knowledge and expertise in that particular vertical. Same thing. That's the same sort of specialization that we're talking about. It's going to be invaluable. I mean, it doesn't matter whether the vendor is horizontal. I think the importance is to try to find is that the partners who are reselling the solutions and implementing them or referring them and consulting around them are the ones who have these vertical industry skills.
Gotcha. I think it's a little bit of both, but I understand your message to the solution providers. Absolutely. Okay.
So one of the things that's very important for the channel as they make this transformation into a more of a services provider, cloud services provider type of model, and for vendors themselves to understand, is adjusting their sales and marketing to this new norm. Historically, channel companies have been super good at technology, obviously. That's why they get into the business. They tend to be engineer types, or they just had a knack for technology, a lot of these small firms. They learned on the go about sales, and they've become better at sales. And marketing has always been a super afterthought for many channel firms. I don't know if you just look at many websites today for channel companies, and sometimes you look at them and you just cannot understand what this company does. And it's difficult. I think marketing has been the biggest challenge if you talk about the pillars of doing business. You've got finance, sales, marketing, and the technical expertise. It has been difficult, but I've been super encouraged because for the first time on a study, it was quite clear that channel companies are getting it. And I'm sure the SaaS market is ahead of this game because they're really selling, they're selling a service and not a tangible product that you can put in front of a customer and talk about how it works, which is one way of selling. Selling a service that's going to be ongoing and what the benefits of your company and your brand reputation bring because a lot of times now the customer isn't seeing whatever hardware, software, whatever is on the back end. They're not seeing it, whatever the infrastructure is. So you're not going to market saying, I'm in the top tier of, Cisco XYZ certification, because the customer doesn't necessarily care about that. They want to know what business outcome you're going to sell them, and how can I trust you. So give me some customer references that you're a good service provider. So it's really important, I think, for messaging and branding to change, and we're seeing a dramatic shift. And I think a lot of it has to do with these new players in the channel who are starting from the understanding that marketing is super important for them. So as you can see here, they're creating incentives to drive sales in new business areas through marketing. They're rebranding their business as a service provider and not as a technology provider. And for the first time, we're seeing money being put into a marketing budget. I mean, I can't tell you how few channel firms have budget set aside, significant budget set aside for marketing, and we're finally seeing that they're realizing that that is an important thing for them to take into consideration, and they're putting their money where their mouth is. All right, so I'll go quickly so we have a little time for questions. Wrapping up, as from the macro perspective, the industry growth trajectory is reasonably solid right now. Customers know more today than they ever have about what technology is out there, and how they thirst for it. They really want technology to help run their business. All those objectives we just talked about, their priorities for the year, they believe technology can help get them to where they want to go. They don't all know how to do that, and this is the big opportunity for solution providers, for SaaS resellers, for you name it, the gamut, managed services providers, to help customers know how to use the tools and the services out there to get them through those objectives that they're trying to achieve. It's a fact that channel businesses are going to remain hybrid. Most are not pure plays to this date, so you're going to see people still selling on-premise equipment, coupled with a managed services business, coupled with some SaaS business on the side. We're seeing more and more pure plays on the SaaS side, so we'll acknowledge that. But many of these companies may then get a request from a customer for a hardware purchase, and then that SaaS provider can make a referral perhaps to a partner that's able to fulfill on the hardware side. So I think the whole hybrid notion of both the business model and what these companies are going to sell is going to continue to be that mixed bag. And then finally, Dina, I know you wanted to speak to this last spot, so I'll let you go ahead and take that one.
Well, sure. Well, really, it's key that, a lot of SaaS vendors will come to market thinking that they have the only and best product out there, and that everyone should stop and look at our product because it's so great. But really what you need to think about is, how do you get it into a solution provider, a partner's bundle or stack of products that they sell as a solution, because they're the ones who are touching so many additional companies out there. And to be able to accommodate them and show them how your products fit into their catalog and how they're complementary to other products will really give you an edge over your competitors on getting to market through the channel. So I just think it's very important to consider that, as well as how you're going to compensate those channel partners, because you want them to make money and you want them to be able to figure out how they're going to include you in their portfolio and in their solutions. So you have to incentivize them to get them started. So while so many companies do come to SaaSMAX saying, hey, we're ready to go and everyone's going to love our product, well, the reality is these solution providers are very analytical, and they're thinking about how they can provide the overall value add and efficiencies to their clients. And at the same time, they do need to make money. So those are just key points as a SaaS vendor that we need you to really consider. So yeah, so that's the wrap up of this, Carolyn. And so this was great data. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them while you're typing questions in if you have. We do have a couple of upcoming SaaSMAX events that I just thought we could post, and one of them is that tomorrow for solution providers we have a webinar about the cybersecurity channel marketplace that SaaSMAX offers. And we have a snapshot webinar for CoreDial coming up in right after the new year. So for those of you who are interested in unified communications and ways to improve or add that to your line card, it's a really great business model. And so please consider coming and learning more about CoreDial's opportunities. And then more on the cybersecurity world, where SaaSMAX is really bringing in a lot of cybersecurity as a service SaaS companies. And so we're working on how to help the solution providers not only sell more SaaS to their clients, but also how to provide a very comprehensive security solution to their clients, which really helps them secure their foothold and their relationship with their clients. And for those of you who are interested in that space, we're also doing a roadshow coming up in 2017 with over 11 cities. And we're really bringing together pioneers and thought leaders with the channel, and bringing those vendors also in with the channel. So we're very excited to be able to hold these events coming up, and we'll be sending you more information on them. And so Laura, I'll sort of hand it over to you. Are there any questions that were out there that we need to address?
Yes, we have a few questions and a comment as well. From Mr. Warren, we have, how do you see expansion of cloud businesses and services to international markets?
I see it happening, for sure. I mean, we actually do several international studies. We try to do a couple every year. And we see, particularly in, EMEA, obviously Canada, some of the English-speaking countries, we see very similar adoption rates and spread of cloud. Hopefully we'll be doing more studies in Asia and in South America going forward this year. And I'm into next year, excuse me. We're sort of formalizing that international budget right now. But I do not see, I see cloud penetration. I mean, cloud is a good, really drops the barrier to entry for a lot of smaller companies and end users to get into, like I said earlier, some of the technology solutions and services that would be completely out of reach. And so I see it as a big opportunity for companies that are thinking about operating in those different geos.
Right, and I just want to bring up that, from SaaSMAX's side, we're seeing international products or SaaS companies that are from other countries starting to join our marketplace to bring their products to the U.S. market. So, for example, Intelligence Bank has just formed an office in California, and they're an Australian company with 4 really great file sharing and board management and PCI compliance solutions. And so we're seeing really good quality initially foreign SaaS companies who are moving in, and a lot of Israeli companies with security products are also moving toward North America. So I'd see both, products coming in from outside that are really innovative, and then also opportunities to take the products from the U.S. and expand is of course a big opportunity right now, especially with the ease of cloud provisioning and SaaS being able to work anywhere.
Great. The next question came from, and if I pronounce his name wrong, I am so sorry, Mr. Ranawira. And he wanted to know if the survey, Carolyn, included data from the Microsoft channel, Sage, or Intuit.
Well, so we do not, we're vendor neutral at CompTIA, so we do not do studies of specific vendors and their channels. But we do use outside research panels to get our sample for our studies, and we're very particular about quotas around the demographics that we have within that sample. So we make sure we have a certain percentage of small companies, a certain percentage of medium size, a certain percentage of enterprise. We make sure we have quotas around the vertical industries, so we make sure that we have an even spread around, manufacturing versus retail versus anything. But we don't break it down by vendor, but you can be fairly assured, given the large size of our sample and the presence of the companies that you just mentioned, that there are definitely representatives within the sample that we have within the survey.
Great. And the last is from Mr. Riggs, and it's really more of a comment that typical SaaS vendor has mandate from investors to grow very fast. Typical channel partner not at all used to moving at the speed. Either one of your thoughts on that?
I think that's a great assessment, especially for early stage emerging SaaS companies. But there's also about, it's about go-to-market and customer acquisition, right? So, for a lot of emerging SaaS companies, they can't afford to spend millions of dollars hiring a direct sales force to reach all the businesses out there on Main Street. And even if they did, they wouldn't have the trusted advisor relationships that a partner provides. And so to have a longer term scope as a business, not just let the venture fund wag your tail, is a very important thing from the long-term strategic planning of your SaaS company. So there's a fine balance, and how you position that with your board is one thing, but we've certainly seen some of the top software companies in the world, Microsoft and IBM and SAP and Oracle, they have channels, they have resellers. These are the people who have the relationships out there, who are building the trust, who can service and support their clients and have a direct feet on the street impact on their clients. And so don't sell the channels short, because it really is the long-term end. And there are other stats that show that by leveraging channel partners, your churn rate goes down as well. So whereas you may have direct clients sign up and immediately they may not use the full software. They may sign up for a feature or two, but they may not ever convert. Whereas when you have channel partners who are focused on really bringing value to their clients, they're making sure that their clients are going to adopt and leverage and optimize that software product.
Yeah, I would agree, and just echo that. I think, as with any new, nimble startup, as many SaaS companies are, initially you do not have the investment to make in a large, indirect channel. You have a few direct salespeople who seed the market, but as you begin to grow, and you begin to grow quickly, you realize that the direct sales team you have is ill-equipped to be able to cover the footprint that you want to cover, the regional or geographies that you want to reach, and that's where it becomes imperative that you start to engage with the indirect channel, and they become indispensable, quite frankly, for many newer companies once they begin to get out of their initial stages.
That is all the questions that we have at this time. I want to thank everybody for posting their questions. Dina, Carolyn, any last words you would like to say before we close the webinar?
Just want to say thank you for having me.
Yep, and I wanted to say thank you to Carolyn for supporting the industry and being able to provide this kind of data, and thank you all for attending and spending the time. We look forward to your feedback and comments on it, and we did record this, so we will be sending out a link to the recording, and we invite you to share it with your peers and hopefully take some of the advice, because we think it's will help you and your business grow into the year ahead. So happy holidays, everyone. Thanks for your time. And Carolyn, thanks again, and Laura, thank you for making sure this all ran smoothly. All right, bye-bye, everyone. Have a great day.